Hey all you great crusaders, Warhammer Wiki here. Today we're going to be covering the theory that the Emperor of Mankind is a psychopath. And I don't mean that by like what people use psychopath as, like, oh my gosh, you're a complete psychopath whenever they do something weird. I mean an actual certified psychopath. By definition, psychopaths are characterized by extreme lack of empathy. Psychopaths also are manipulative, charming, and exploitive. They behave in impulsive and risky manners. They lack consciousness or guilt and refuse to accept responsibility for their actions. Psychopathic traits commonly include narcissism, superficial charm, impulsivity, callous, unemotional traits, lack of guilt, and lack of empathy. Now, some of you guys may be saying, Warhammer Wiki, how are you certified to actually talk about what a psychopath is? Well, first and foremost, I am basically an expert in this field. One, because I took like 2 college classes on psychology, so let that sink in really quick. Number 2, I actually went to a rehabilitation center because I was a crazy person when I was younger, and within that rehabilitation center that I was in for about 9.5 months, I experienced all sorts of different behaviors with the people that were surrounding me, including my own roommates, the people that I went to school with, and the people that I basically lived with for a big section of my life. And in all reality, how do you land yourself in a rehabilitation center as a teenager? You either have to be extremely depressed, you have to be a psychopath, so extremely manipulative, or you have to basically be schizophrenic, to be completely honest. There were certain people within rehab that did have schizophrenia. They would literally sit there, you wouldn't even be talking to them, they'd be staring at a wall, and they would basically do this exact same thing. And no joke, on one account, after that super creepy laugh, they turned over to me and they said, Warhammer Wiki, just know we're laughing with you, not laughing at you. And there was no one else there talking. So yeah, that's kind of the people and that's the experience that I had. When it comes to talking about someone being psychopathic, understanding those traits and actually living with them definitely helped out quite a bit when it came to the credibility that I have on this topic. Now that we got the general psychopath stuff out of the way, let's go over who the Emperor of Mankind actually is. Skip to this time section on the video if you already know enough about the Emperor of Mankind. Full Emperor of Mankind story speedrun edition.
He was someone that was born about 10,000 BC. The way that he was actually created, we aren't 100% sure, just know that he's perpetual, so he's someone that lives forever and has extreme psychic abilities. In fact, we believe that he is one of the strongest psychers, if not the strongest psyker in the galaxy currently. He played a couple roles in leadership throughout history just to make sure that mankind was being elevated and continuing to progress forward, and then it kind of fell off once we reached the dark age of technology, or the age of enlightenment, so we continue to expand and grow as a civilization, branching off of what is Earth or Terra in the Warhammer 40k universe and expanding into the stars. At this point, the Emperor felt that he didn't really have to do anything to help out mankind, they were just kind of going at their own pace. Once crap hit the fan and stuff really went downhill for mankind, the Emperor decided to step up and kind of take the reins of leading mankind as its sole protector, hence where he gets the name the Emperor of Mankind. He ended up taking over Earth, ended up basically making a treaty with Mars, and then he decided to build all these super soldiers, which included his sons, which were the Primarchs, which are basically demigods, because the Emperor of Mankind is almost like a god himself, and then the Space Marines, which are just super advanced, large, crazy human warriors that are there basically just to do war. Set them across the galaxy to basically take everything over and put it underneath one rule, and gather all of those last remaining humans that were kind of out of the reach for a while. The Emperor of Mankind made a ton of super stupid and really silly mistakes as he continued to rule mankind, which culminated in most of his children, I think about half of them, turning against him, and then actually fighting this crazy civil war battle, in which he was damaged or basically killed by Horus, one of his most prized sons, and then he ended up sitting down on a giant golden throne, which amplified his psychic abilities and allows him to continue living. So in the year 30k is when all that crap went down. Now we're at the year 40k, he's basically just a husk of a man sitting on this golden throne, controlling everything psychically, holding back the chaos gods, and helping guide humanity forward.
Whew, that was a lot about the Emperor condensed into a very small point. Now let's get on to the main topic. What qualifies the Emperor of Mankind as an actual psychopath? This is going to be a very negative video. I know a lot of you Emperor of Mankind fanboys are probably going to be like this. Rest assured, not everything is bad with the Emperor, so don't feel that I'm saying that, but he definitely is a psychopath. So let's start out with the first common trait of a psychopath, antisocial behavior. A lot of times this means someone that is distant from the rest of society, sees himself as maybe an outcast or that he's the normal one, everyone else around him is the strange one. Prime example of this was when he locked himself away to work on the Webway project during the biggest battle in human history that he was the the main commander and leader for, he just totally stood up and said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go lock myself away in a laboratory and start working on a different project. I'm gonna leave it up to my sons to take care of everything. That is prime example of antisocial disorder. Number 2, he sat on the golden throne for 10,000 years and decided not to communicate the whole time until Gilliman is revived, another one of his sons. Basically, once Gilliman comes in, he totally just brain blasts him with negative thoughts for a few days in a row, like calling Gilliman a failure, a tool, a weapon, definitely not a son. Now, he did say that he was like the savior of mankind and that, you know, he's probably the only one that could save it, but everything else was pretty negative about it. So prime antisocial behavior. Second trait of a psychopath is narcissism. So let's just look at his name, Emperor of Mankind. He is the emperor over all of mankind, and that is a title that he gave himself. That is definitely some narcissism. Number 2, on Mars, he actually planted evidence in the Mechanicum Bible early on during its religious phase and its religious uprising, so he could then present himself as a god to make sure that they would end up following him. Don't get me wrong, I mean, this probably happens quite a bit in current religious texts, but anyone that puts themselves in a religious text and says, hey, I am basically going to be a god, extremely manipulative and definitely something that stands for narcissism. Number 3, he sacrifices 1,000 psychers a day to sustain his own life. Granted, this is probably needed, but if we do the math, so let's just take 1,000 psychers a day for the past 10,000 years that they've been being sacrificed, that adds up to 3,650,000,000 psychers. If even half of those psychers were trained to actually fight against the warp, they could probably do pretty well to fight them off. But the Emperor is doing this to basically become a god, so it's not just to sustain his life. All of those souls are slowly adding up so he can actually become a god. That is the truest act of narcissism, is sacrificing a lot of people so that you could achieve your goal. Looking at you, Griffith from Berserk, I absolutely hate you. The next trait is superficial charm. This is one of the Emperor's favorite things to do since day one. Since he was even younger, before the year 40,000 or 30,000, when he was basically introduced to everyone, it's something that he's been doing for a long time. But let's look at one of the most well-known psychopaths in history, which is actually Ted Bundy. If you guys don't know who Ted Bundy is, I wouldn't recommend looking too far into him because he's absolutely terrifying. Just so you know, he was a woman charmer and a serial killer. The way that they actually describe him, this is underneath a police report. It says he grew up to be charming, articulate, and an intelligent young man. Erda, who was basically the Emperor of Mankind's wife, the person that helped him create the Primarchs, described him as this in his younger age when he was first on the earth. And I quote, "He is truly quite wonderful, kind, funny, witty, articulate, passionate, incisive, clever beyond genius, charismatic, devoted, driven, determined. From the earliest days of his life, he did what we all did," end quote. And anything that relates you to Ted Bundy is absolutely terrifying. So from one psychopath to another psychopath, those two things are lining up pretty close. When I say the Emperor of Mankind is a master at superficial charm, that is a complete understatement. The Emperor of Mankind has extreme psychic abilities, which means he's able to change his appearance, the way that he sounds, the way that he looks, the way that he acts, to actually fit what's perfect in other people's eyes. So he's taken superficial charm and cranking it up to like 1,000,000,000. The way that we know that this actually happens was by his own son's account. So for every single son that he ended up meeting with, he actually presented himself in different ways to every individual son to make sure that they would end up following him. Gilliman saw him as a stoic leadership figure, which is perfect for Gilliman and what he would want in a father. And then when you take a look at Lorgar saw him as a god, and the Emperor very much so made himself seem like a god, glowing light behind him, impossible to look at because he's shining so brightly, you know, floating, that kind of stuff. And then we have someone like Lionel Johnson. This one's really interesting because the Lion says that he's the only person to see the real Emperor and that all of his brothers saw only masks. So he just saw him as like a normal hooded figure, armored in emerald plate, basically shrouded in robes of gold, breathed in an obscuring light, but said that he was very much so more normal than what a lot of his brothers saw. But let's get down into superficial charm and what a psychopath would do. The Lion distinguishes himself from all of of his other brothers. He believes that he's smarter, he believes that he's stronger, he believes that he's better, and the Emperor knew this, so it's very easy for him to show something more normal and say, oh yeah, you know, all your brothers are seeing these crazy things, you're seeing the real me. That's not the real Emperor of Mankind. Again, this is like superficial charm on steroids. And the Emperor of Mankind's superficial charm is like even deeper than everything that I'm already talking about with his sons, because he uses this on the Sisters of Silence. The Sisters of Silence are basically, he has a full army of them. They're blanks, so they're people born without souls. The psychic abilities are basically void on them. In fact, for a normal psyker, when they get close to a Sister of Silence, or a blank as they call them, it actually physically hurts them to be near them. And the Sisters of Silence think that they could see through the Emperor and his disguises. They see like an old weathered man, but the Emperor also does not show any sign that he's affected by the Sisters of Silence. He has them around him at like all times, and he shows zero discomfort. And the Emperor of Mankind is so above the average psyker that I am almost 100% sure that he is actually putting on a show to make them feel that they could go toe to toe with any psyker by showing them, oh yeah, I'm just a weathered old man to you, which increases their confidence in themselves. So his superficial charm is on like another level. Next trait is impulsivity. So basically everything the Emperor does is impulsive, taking over Terra before he even created the warriors that he wanted. So he was trying to create Space Marines. His prototype was the Thunder Warriors, but he basically just sent them out because he's like, this is all I have and I really want to take over Terra right now. Launching a full galactic war and then randomly piecing out to work on a different project, full well knowing that his sons probably couldn't handle this, and then randomly grabbing Angron from his homeworld like a jerk, and I'll get back into this one, allowing Angron's brothers in arms to be slaughtered, not listening to Magnus when he blew through the actual shield that he had set up around Terra. Magnus was just trying to warn the guy, and he throws him back all the way psychically to his homeworld where he was astral projecting himself without even hearing out what Magnus had to say. That's a pretty impulsive thing to do. Psychopathic trait number 5, callous or unemotional traits. In this section, I could basically make a whole video about how the Emperor is callous and has unemotional traits. I'm just going to condense it down to one story, and that's the story of Angron, one of his Primarch sons. Angron was a son that was born, and all Primarchs have different abilities. He was born with the ability to take the pain away from others. When he was shot into the warp away from the Emperor, he landed on a planet where there was a lot of kind of like barbarian slavers, and what they would do is they would capture you and then they would pitch you against other slaves. When he was captured, he was made into a slave. He was, and I wouldn't say like, not in a weird way, but he was falling in love with all of those other slaves that he was with because he was able to take away their pain, help them out, becoming a good part of their family. When he was sent out to go fight against his own family, a lot of times he would hold back. Slavers really didn't like that, so they put in these things called the butcher's nails into his brain, which caused immense pain unless he was currently brutalizing somebody. Unless he was extremely angry and causing violence to somebody else, he was constantly feeling this horrific pain. He was able to, fight a little bit more inside of these barbarian battles, and he started an uprising. So he finally got enough of these slaves to follow him to where he was able to kind of break out of those chains, started a war against the slavers. They were losing against those slavers, but they were holding their own as long as Angron was kind of with them. The Emperor shows up and teleports Angron onto his ship, leaving the rest of his family behind to fight against these barbarians. And the barbarians are just absolutely slaughtering all of these people. And it's really interesting because Angron could have had a much better relationship with the Emperor of Mankind if the Emperor just sent down his people to go kill the barbarians, take out the barbarians, and then go and save the rest of his family. And the rest of his family were fighting people. They were pretty strong, so they definitely could have become Space Marines later on. But the Emperor basically just teleported Angron up into the ship and said, okay, watch it while all of your friends die and you can't leave this ship. Yada da da da. I'm not going to help them out at all. What kind of weird, callous, unemotional trait do you have to do that? And it gets even worse. When it comes to the actual butcher's nails, the Emperor of Mankind had Angron sedated on a slab so he could study the butcher's nails. And one of the fellow scientists was just like, yo, you're super smart and whatnot. Can't you just remove the butcher's nails? If anyone can do it, it could be you. And the Emperor was like, duh, I'm smart enough to take out the butcher's nails, but I won't because I'm a turd muffin and I like him, burning worlds that disagree with him. Also, Gilliman shows up and was like, yo, Pops, I love you. I haven't seen you in 10,000 years. And the Emperor was like, dude, you're a fool. Go do your freaking job. So definitely callous. The second to last trait is lack of guilt. I was trying to determine whether to put the story in the section of lack of guilt or the callous section. I think that it fits this part a little bit better. I was talking about the Emperors had these prototype warriors, the Thunder Warriors, that basically took over Terra, or our current Earth, for him. They fought countless battles, sacrificed everything, and what did the Emperor do? What was their big reward? He sent his new Space Marine warriors that he had just got done building and custodians to corner them after a ginormous battle and kill every single one of them. Maybe even worse, sending armies to genocide quintillions of Xenos and humans alike to unite the galaxy under his banner is just like, yeah, whatever, as long as you get the job done. That seems very much so a lack of guilt for the things that he's done. He's never apologized for the things that he's done. He's just like, yeah, whatever. The last section that really seals the deal for him being a psychopath is his lack of empathy. Going back to Lorgar, when he presented himself to Lorgar basically as a god, and Lorgar is a super religious prophet guy that had been prophesying about the Emperor of Mankind coming, his father, and basically saving the whole galaxy and saving all the humans in that galaxy. So Lorgar was really excited to meet him. Lorgar's going and taking over worlds in the Emperor's name, and then he's leaving behind some of his people to basically indoctrinate those on that planet to start worshiping the Emperor. The Emperor is very against worship. I actually have a video I'm going to pin up here about the Emperor always wanting to be God, and this is a complete psychopathic facade that he's putting up saying not to worship him to get people to worship him more. So check out that video. He wanted to make an example to his other sons of what happens to somebody when you don't follow those rules, because he has a rule that nobody should worship him, and because Lorgar was indoctrinating all of these worlds, the Emperor came down to the world that Lorgar liked the most with Gilliman and the legions of the Ultramarines and nuked the planet in front of Lorgar. Completely just bombed the whole place, killed every single person on the whole planet, and then the Emperor personally came down as Lorgar is sitting there bawling his eyes out with tons, he had 100,000 of Lorgar's sons are sitting there. And the Emperor comes down and is like, kneel before me, and psychically forces everyone to kneel down in front of their own father, forcing Lorgar himself to kneel down before him, and then completely just telling him off, like, I should have killed you, I could have killed you, but I decided not to because it's much better when you're over there taking over planets on my behalf. I'm sparing your life in front of all of your children. Ha ha ha, you're completely humiliated. It was just a full jacked up thing, complete lack of empathy. There you have it, complete wrap up of everything that makes the Emperor of Mankind a certified psychopath. Now, this is not the last video that I'm going to be dogging on the Emperor, and I know a few of you are going to be like, you can't keep getting away with it! But hey, we're just going off of facts here. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, this other theory. I've been really enjoying making these theory videos. They're much easier for me just to kind of sit down and film out based on the knowledge that I already have of the Warhammer 40k universe, and you guys seem to enjoy them too. If you guys can, do me a huge favor, hit that like, subscribe button, share this with a friend that you know is an Emperor of Mankind fanboy just to make them mad, and then I definitely look forward to seeing you on the next video. We are getting very close to that 1,000 subscriber mark. Let's make this the video to do it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.